The car is sick, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of work to the wide body. For you guys that are new here, we bought this Mercedes, lowered it on cut springs, and built a custom wide body for it, including little ducktail spoiler and a custom front bumper. And now it is time to smooth everything out, make it look finished, and get it ready for paint. That's why we're outside today. It's gonna be a little loud because of semis and stuff.
Quiet on the set!
But we're gonna get the kit back on. We are going to smooth it all out and get this thing ready for paint. It's gonna look sick. Let's get this kit on. So these are really easy to put on. You just give them a toss. So it's as easy as that. You can throw them on, but I think we'll be sure to screw the other ones on because that was a little bit aggressive. So this is the first time we've put the fenders on since lowering the front. We knew the front looked really low, but with the fenders on, you can really see how low it actually is, and it's super low. I'm hopeful that we still have clearance, but it is really close. I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. But turning and stuff is the real if here. I've already cut this flap. This is gonna be for pushing the fender back so we get some more clearance on the back side. But yeah, we're just gonna have to, I guess, drive it around and see what happens in just a minute. The back looks pretty good, and it could actually come out a lot. We could come out a lot with the rear, so we're gonna figure something out with that. We still gotta trim some stuff off of there, and then figure out what we want to do with the rear wheel setup. If we can get it to go wider, we can. I don't know if we'll be able to. I don't know. We'll see. Overall, though, it looks sick. All right, so what we're gonna do real quick before we get into body work and these things is do our final trimmings. We gotta trim up around our headlights, our rear bumper, like everything's gotta look right before we start actually trying to smooth everything out. This thing should look more like it fits this car. All right, so my favorite way to go about this is the fastest way. It's also the most messy, which is why we brought this thing outside to do it. We've got everything trimmed up, and this kit is looking like it belongs on this car now, but it's still really rough. So we're gonna take a grinding wheel. Mine's really used, but you can use a new one. And we're gonna grind down all the dark green stuff, that filler that we put on last time. We're just gonna get it as smooth as we possibly can. We'll come back over that with more filler later, and since we're running out of daylight, that'll probably be it for today. We'll check back tomorrow and get some more sanding done. You're one and only you. All right, so it's a new day. It's a much colder day, which means, well, it means two things. One, me and Eric are both freezing, but two, the fiberglass is gonna take longer to cure. So the good thing about that is it means we have plenty of working time to get everything real smooth. The bad thing is it's gonna take longer to cure. If you're one that freaks out when you see me loading this stuff up on the fender, know that most of it gets sanded off. It is just a finishing surface, just a lot harder than body filler, so it just kind of adds some structure to all the cuts and pastes and stuff that we did to make these fenders fit. I feel a lot more comfortable with this stuff over body filler. We will use body filler, we'll use a little bit, but the majority of like the real big fixes, the real big crimes we need to hide will be done in this. So we're just gonna go over everything we sanded last night, make it all real smooth. Something in my eye. We're okay. And then we'll go over it with 40 grit sandpaper. That's gonna be kind of our final shaping pass and then we'll be ready to start filling and getting everything ready for paint, which is pretty exciting. Let's see. We've got this hole here. I just forgot to make this piece big enough like I did on the other side, and I want to fill it. Now, there's a couple ways we could do it. We could make a piece like we have been and graft it in and all that. I'm gonna do it a quicker way, and some people might not like this, but it does work. I've had it on a car. Actually, the MR2 had a spot just like this that I fixed this way, and it lasted the whole life of that car, with me anyway, which was like 2 years. So what we're gonna do is just take some tape and lay it back here. All right, I think I'm going to pull, no, I'll go around these screws and I'll fill that later, I think. What do I want to do? What do I want to do?
I don't know. Time's ticking. Time is a ticking.
I know. So for this, we're just gonna go yonk, just like that. And that's gonna give us a surface, and we'll come back behind it and put some actual fiberglass on it, just to make sure it's solid and bonded. But you see now, no more hole. Pretty cool. All right, so this stuff is set up. It's dry now. We're gonna hit it with some 40 grit, which is really, really rough, and we're gonna take it down. Now, you'll see some dark spots as I'm sanding. Those are the low spots. We'll come back and fill those one more time with fiberglass filler before we move to the body filler like Bondo. But this is gonna give us a really smooth surface. It's kinda gonna finish everything out for us and make this thing look really good. It's been a couple of days since you guys last saw me work. I have just been sanding a lot, and our kit is just about ready to go back on the car for the last time. We'll do body work and everything after that, but before we get into that, I wanted to take care of one more problem we have, which is our spoiler. This spoiler fits really, really well, but there's one place it doesn't, and that's right here where it kind of meets the body, so I want to fix that. This is called a contour gauge. I don't use it very often, but it's really useful for things like this, and what I'm going to do is take this and just push it down against the car. And what that does is it gives us a perfect outline of the shape. Now, we've done a little bit of a cooking show here, and I've already cut the shape out. This is it. I'm still cutting off this piece of fiberglass that I made early on in the build. And we cut the shape out right here, and you can see it fits just perfectly next to the car. So, next step, we're going to trim this down. We'll push it up inside of there, screw a piece in, and fiberglass over it, and when we get done, it'll look like this. So you can see now we have a very nice fitment. We'll actually have to trim this back a little bit so it doesn't mess up our paint, but we have very nice fitment here. This is all smooth. We can pull our screw out, and we'll have a finished piece. We'll have to reinforce that from the back just to make sure nothing breaks off or cracks or anything like that, but it's a very easy job, and now the spoiler actually fits the car. We're gonna permanently mount these fenders. I'm kind of tired of doing the bolt-on fender thing, and I just like the way it looks when there's no bolts. So to do that, we're gonna have to basically make this fender removable, which is an issue because this fender has hidden bolts. So we're gonna go ahead and pre-remove the hidden bolts, and that way if you do have to remove this fender for whatever reason, it'll come off with the over fender attached rather than having to cut your over fender up just to get the fender off. So check out how good this thing looks. It looks really awesome. There actually used to be a giant hole in it. That's what our gas tank was for the E36. and now it's just a smooth fender. Really awesome. So we did do a lot of sanding here. As you can see, we've got a pretty smooth transition down into the fender now. Get it lined up correctly, and that fits like it should. Now, the good thing about this side is there's no hidden bolts. We are never gonna take our quarter panel off. You typically wouldn't, unless the car is totally thrashed. So that means we just get to mount these. Now I'm gonna do something that the internet is gonna hate. You guys are gonna hate it so much. Not all of you, but we're gonna hold this on with sheet metal screws, which I normally don't do. Normally I would do like riv nuts and it would all be removable and all that stuff. But since we're not removing this and we're hiding all of the hardware, we're going to screw this in, and that's gonna be what holds our fender on. And then we're going to fill over them so that you can't see them, and our fender will be mounted. Is it gonna work? I think so. Are there better ways? I don't know, but this is the way we're gonna do it. That we are mounted. Now you'll notice these look a lot smoother than the last time you saw them, and basically what that is just a lot of sanding. I didn't film it this time, I normally do, but that's always the most boring parts of my videos to me. So I decided to skip it over with this one, and you guys can let me know what you think about that. But this is about, I think this one actually has about 3 passes, where we filled the whole thing, sanded it all down, filled over the whole thing again, sanded that down, and then did some spot filling over some of the harder stuff. And I mean, it really feels really good. And the good thing about this fiberglass filler is it's super structural, so it's not gonna give me any cracking or any issues like that. Now, the next move is going to be to get this flat. So if you're familiar with bodywork, then you know what that means. If you're not, basically, anytime you do a lot of work to a panel, you're gonna have some waves that maybe you can't see with your eye. Normally you can feel them, but when you put glossy paint on something, it shows everything. So we're gonna wipe this whole panel with a body filler, like Bondo type stuff, but there's a different one I use because I like it better. We'll wipe the whole fender with that and then block it down so it's all flat and smooth. And that way we know when we paint the car, when we paint the fenders, it's gonna look really good no matter what angle you look at, which is pretty awesome. Got a few more things to fabricate just to make these fit really perfectly, and then we'll be off to bodywork and get ready for paint. Super excited. While we're waiting on our kind of gap fixes to dry, we're going to fill in all the screw holes, but we still have to sand them so that the fiberglass will actually stick. So I'm gonna go with a Dremel, and we'll just run it inside of these little gaps right here. That way when we do put filler over it, it's going to stick and we won't have any issues with it pulling off later. This is the filler that I use, and I really like it because it sands like more expensive brands, but it's not more expensive. So I'll link some in the description below. We'll just get a bunch of this. So we're gonna take the filler and just go over anything that has fiberglass on it. But we just wanna have something there to really make sure that when we do put some really shiny paint on this fender, it's gonna be flat. All right, so we let this stuff kick. It's still a little bit soft. It hasn't hardened all the way, and that is the best time to get out this thing. This is a cheese grater, and it's exactly what it sounds like, and it'll really shave off a lot of time when you're doing bodywork.
Filmed in front of a live ostrich. Ha ha!
We're gonna take this, we're gonna shave down all of this kind of rough stuff on top, then we'll hit it with a guide coat and sand it, and it'll make sanding go a lot faster, and it makes shaping just so much more fun. Now we're going to take some black spray paint and use that as a guide coat. As we start sanding, it's gonna show us all of our low spots. We can make sure that we block it down to the right spot so that it looks good when it's in paint. The whole point of putting the black paint on there is so that when you sand it, you can see what the body is actually doing, if it's actually flat. When you get done sanding, or when you get done with your first pass, you'll see we've got these kind of black spots everywhere. And that shows me these are low spots. We've either got to block those down some more or fill again in these certain areas and then flatten them out. This right here is actually a high spot where we've sanded through all the paint and through the Bondo. And so we know that we've got to do a little bit more work here. This is where our gas door was. We've got to do a little more work here before this panel is completely flat. If we painted it right now, we would have some waves and we'd have these little divots that you would see underneath the paint. It would look really awful. So we'll have to pass over this one more time, and then it should be completely flat. All right, so as you guys have noticed, our quality has gone up an insane amount, and that's because FJ Eric is filming for me, but he's not here every single day, and so it gives me a chance to do like some of the really monotonous, boring stuff off camera, and that is exactly what I've been doing. I spent the past 2.5 days filling and sanding 3 or 4 times on these fenders, and that means that they are done. The fabrication is complete. What you see is going to be the final kit, and that means that the next step is paint, which we are super, super stoked for. So we're gonna finish flattening everything out. We'll sand everything in the next video and paint it in the next video. I think you guys are gonna be really stoked about this paint job. It's gonna be really, really cool. We've been planning it for quite a while. A couple of other things we did off camera is continuing to work on the convertible system. I don't know if it's gonna function or not. We got it like halfway function today. And just body work wherever I see it. So we fixed a few spots on the hood, so it's completely flat now. I think this car is gonna end up looking really, really great once we get some fresh paint on it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're enjoying the speed of this build. We are actually finishing something. We'll have another video on this car next Saturday. We'll see you then.